Right. Well, welcome, beautiful soul sister. I
Thank
am,
you.
yeah, I am so excited for this opportunity. I am excited to share this space with you. I just want to take a moment to thank you for being here, for your willingness to share your unique journey as a spiritual entrepreneur, as well as your breadth of knowledge and wisdom on this very important and timely topic of tarot therapy. So,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
my pleasure. My
I
pleasure.
like that spiritual entrepreneur. I had never thought of that before.
Well, that's
Yeah,
certainly
that's a good one.
good.
Spiritual
Yes,
entrepreneur.
yes.
I'm gonna use that.
Mhm. Good, good. And so, for those of you that are tuning in, we welcome you to our very first Sacred Feminine Leadership Sunday discussion. So, just to give you a little background, I created this space for authentic, embodied sacred leadership. This is also a wonderful opportunity for us to come together in community to share and uplift one another, to discuss topics that actually uplift and empower the soul. It also is a wonderful opportunity for us to spiritually ground sacred knowledge and wisdom so that we may apply that wisdom in practical ways that will enable us to lead our lives from a more authentic, empowered, and soul aligned space. So, once again, we thank you for being here today. Nyki and I look forward to engaging with each of you. In fact, if you haven't already, please take a moment to let us know where you're joining from and what inspired you to be here. Aloha, Christina. Thank you so much for joining. We're happy to have you.
Aloha.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. I know, Nikki, you have such an amazing journey, a story to share, and I'd love for you to take a moment to share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to become a coach, a tarot therapist, and numerologist.
Whew, that's a long story. A long story and a long journey. Like, yeah, what did inspire me? I think there are so many inspirations, at each point of the journey. There are different things that inspired me. So numerology, I started practicing numerology. I had to have been in my early 20s when I got into numerology. Of course, it was after dabbling in some astrology,
Hmm.
which I found quickly just was not my thing. Astrology just, I mean, of course, I'm really into astrology. I'm a Leo, I know that much. And now I know my moon and my rising, but astrology, like I said, was never really my thing. I always felt more naturally drawn toward numerology. So, and I can't even tell you how I came across
Mm.
numerology. It was in the 90s. I do remember that, but it wasn't from a particular person or anything that I,
Mhm.
saw that I can remember. It was just something I came across, and I love numbers. I could relate quite easily to the symbolism of
Mhm.
numbers. And it just made sense. For me, it just made sense. And as I got more into it, um, again, it felt like this natural relationship. It was easy. And
Mhm.
it was almost like a remembering, when you get into
Yes.
something, it's almost like you're remembering how to do something, not really new. It didn't feel new. It just felt like, oh, okay, I'm remembering how to do this. So numerology was the first thing I got into. In 2011 is when I started my journey into life coaching. I
Okay.
started in 2011 getting trained. Now, mind you, I had been practicing numerology for years already.
Mhm.
So I got into life coaching in 2011, took a training course in in life coaching. And it was then that I decided to integrate numerology with my coaching. And so my first coaching business was called Coaching by Numbers because I was using numerology. And at the time, I wasn't really open about it because, again, we're talking
Mhm.
2011, 2012, folks were still kind of, it wasn't as open,
Mhm.
discussing things like numerology and astrology in that type of way as it is now. The doors have opened. So,
Mhm.
that's kind of how I progressed into the numerology coaching, and which is what I still do now. And in 2012, I think it was 2011 and 2012, that
Mhm.
same time period, I also bought my first deck of tarot cards. So again, I had already been practicing numerology. I
Mhm.
was already into coaching, but I wasn't into tarot. I had just started
Mhm.
with tarot. And it was after a reading. Actually, I'd gotten a reading from this intuitive, and she used tarot cards. It was over the phone, but she had used tarot cards. And when I had I call it a session, when I had my session with her, it really felt
Mhm.
like that was my first tarot therapy session. Um, was
Mhm.
with was with this psychic person, this
Mhm.
intuitive. And, I picked up my first deck of tarot cards, and it kind of just went from there. So I
Mhm.
started studying. I really started studying numerology. And when I say study, I mean actually took a course. I took an
Mhm.
online course in numerology back in 2000. I think it was also 2011. 2011 and 2012 was a lot was going on in
It
my
sounds
life
like it.
in my life at that time. I mean, really, a lot was going on in my personal life,
Mhm.
and in my spiritual life. I think sometimes,
Mhm.
I felt like during that time I really hit a bottom.
Mm.
And I think it's because of hitting that bottom that really opened it up for me to get into these spiritual practices because I needed something more, even though I have a very strong Christian background. And
Mhm.
that's a whole nother story, a whole nother live discussion that we can talk about. But, I had a very strong Christian background. So
Mhm.
I have this very strong faith, but I hit this bottom, and it wasn't my first bottom, it was another bottom I hit. But anyway, it opened the door. It was like a catalyst to
Mhm.
me venturing out into the spiritual world, as using these tools rather. I've always felt connected spiritually,
Mhm.
even through my Christian faith. I've always felt this connection. So incorporating these tools didn't really start happening until 2011, 2012. So also during that time, I went back to school. So I'm studying, right? I'm coaching,
Wow.
practicing numerology, picking up my first tarot deck, which was not the right deck for me. It really wasn't. I had to buy another deck, which was my Rider Waite. I still have it. I still use it. It's my favorite deck.
Mhm.
So I got the Rider Waite deck, and then I find myself going back to school.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was probably like in my late 30s. So now I'm going back to school in my late 30s
Mhm.
and wanting to study. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do I want to study? I know I want to go back to school because I feel like I can enhance what I'm learning by going back to school. And initially, I'm like, okay, I'm going to study anthropology because this fits.
Mhm.
If I study anthropology, I'm learning about people and cultures and
Right.
groups and things like that. But I'm like, no, as I'm practicing, mind you, I'm going through all of this as I'm practicing
Mhm.
my numerology, as I'm practicing, tarot. I'm like, no, this isn't really going to fit with what I'm doing. And, I'm too old for anthropology. I'm not going to travel all over the place. I got a family. I can't do that right now. So it's not practical. And so then it became, okay, sociology or psychology. I'm kind of
Mhm.
weighing it out. Do I practice sociology? Do I study sociology? Do I study psychology? And I said, well, I really want to focus more on the individual than I
Mhm.
want to focus on groups. So I went ahead and decided that I was going to major in psychology, which, by the way, was the only subject I failed in high school. I was a straight A student and I failed
Mhm.
psychology. I hated that
Really?
class.
Oh,
It wasn't the
what
class. I
interesting
didn't love like
thread.
the teacher. I failed psychology. The only F I ever received in grade school from K through 12, the only F I ever got was in psychology. When I went to college after high school, because I did go to college straight after high school, I majored in psychology. Hated it because I was like, oh, this is too much like science. Changed my mind, became a Black Studies major.
Mhm.
And then I find myself 20 years later deciding to major in psychology, which I
Wow.
absolutely loved. So I ended up getting my degree in psychology in 2017 while, again, studying numerology, had been practicing tarot now for 6 years by that time.
Mhm.
I've been reading for other people. I even approached one of my psychology instructors and told her about numerology and how I was able to arrive at the same conclusions using numerology as psychologists did using all these questionnaires on personality questionnaires. So
Wow. That's
even at that time, I was looking at how I would be able to incorporate numerology and psychology. And so I was thinking of coming up with this numerology psychology so I can bridge the two and just show
yes.
how easy it is to just bring them together. And so that's pretty much how everything evolved. And when it came down to tarot therapy, again, it was just an evolution of all of that, bringing all of that information together.
Wow, that's so
That's my
amazing.
background.
What an amazing journey. Thank you so much for sharing that.
And
Well,
that's the short version. It's
well,
condensed,
we
very
have so
condensed
much
version.
more to discuss and to dive into today. So I'm certainly interested in all that you have to share, and I'm sure our viewers are as well. And so, just obviously, you're a spiritual entrepreneur,
Yes.
and at what point along your journey did you feel comfortable publicly sharing your spiritually based services? And did you encounter any obstacles that you had to overcome in order to make that happen?
Comfortable. I'm still not 100% comfortable. Honestly, I'm not. I still battle with that.
Mhm,
There's still a little bit of hesitancy with
mhm,
just coming out completely. But
mhm,
it took quite a few years. Like I said, I really started getting into practicing, you know, utilizing these spiritual tools. Like I said, back in maybe 2011, 2012. So, and as a business, right? Because I had
mhm.
started my coaching
Right.
business in 2012. So just openly coming out, it really wasn't until 2020. It took a long
Yes.
time. And a lot of it was just fear of rejection,
Mhm,
mostly from family, not
mhm.
even from friends, because I didn't care too much. I mean, my friends were just always they know me. They know Nikki's always getting into something different. She's, what are you doing now, Nikki? But with family, it was a little different. And
Mhm.
so, especially on Facebook, because at the time, with 2020, now we're all online because we're at home because of the pandemic, and
Right.
putting myself out there to where family could see. That's what caused, like,
Mhm.
oh, I don't know if I could do this, or if I'm going to feel comfortable. Am I going to get any backlash? But I actually didn't. It was really all in my head. I didn't get any of what I thought. And even from folks, what was surprising are the folks who I thought would be judgmental would hit
Mhm.
me up on the sly, like, hey,
Mhm.
they would either message me or text me, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing? Because even they had this fear as well. So it wasn't even their communication with me about it was kind of, on the hush hush as well. So
I see.
Yeah.
So, just reflecting back, I've had an opportunity to know you over the last couple of years. You have inspired me in so many ways. You have also been my teacher. I've had an opportunity to attend a couple of your
Yeah.
workshops, the first workshop being numerology. And I can empathize with what you were saying earlier about numerology. I remember as part of my awakening journey, just naturally gravitating towards numerology. It was just so natural.
Mhm.
In fact, I was adding up numbers and reducing them like all on my own. I hadn't actually read, anything and didn't understand why. I was just,
Yeah.
naturally doing it. So when I first purchased, or excuse me, when I purchased my first numerology book and started reading it, I was even more surprised that basically a lot of the principles and what I was doing just came very innately to me,
Yeah.
which really speaks to that innate, spiritual knowledge and wisdom, that is our divine birthright, that is so much a part of who we are, our ancestors, and, tapping into that innate knowledge and wisdom is something that a lot of us, are doing and experiencing as
Yeah.
part of our spiritual journey. But going back to what you were saying about coming out of the spiritual closet, so to speak, I remember when you first um, shared, if I'm not mistaken, you created, your Facebook page, or you shared your Facebook. Maybe it was your community group.
Mhm.
So it's just been beautiful to witness, you stepping into, your power and really embodying, the essence of who you truly are, at the core of your being. So I just wanted to take a moment, to commend you.
Thank you.
You're
I mean,
welcome.
that's the space, that's truly the space where I feel the most comfortable,
Mhm.
where I do feel like, okay, this is what I should be doing. This is
Mhm.
who I am. This is what comes natural, what is effortless. And when I'm most in the flow is when
Mhm.
I'm doing this. Everything else takes a little bit of effort. When I had my
Mhm.
jobs, some of the jobs I had, it takes a little effort. I'm still there.
Mhm.
I'm still present. There's still me operating, but it takes a little effort because
Mhm.
you're utilizing skills that are more acceptable to society versus utilizing the skills that are more natural to who you are. And what I've learned to do, even with my current day job, is being able to integrate my natural spiritual skills into my work. So I choose work that allows me to help people in a way that I can still in a way that I'm still helping people in my spiritual practice. I'm just not breaking out tarot cards.
Yeah.
But I'm still, it's still a natural, I'm still in the
Mhm.
flow, I'm still being true to myself and authentic. So,
Yeah, that's such a beautiful share because so many of us that are rising in consciousness, that are actually um, discovering our higher identity, our higher purpose, and really stepping into that, are struggling, to find ways to integrate, and apply that wisdom, in our everyday lives. And we're faced with, the question, do I leave corporate? Do I leave my day job? Um, and will I be able to sustain, myself if I were to make that transition and go full time, as a spiritual entrepreneur. So I really appreciate, your share with that. I'm sure, that will be really helpful for others, who are tuning in, to be able to see how you have found a way to integrate,
yeah.
your spiritual aspirations and gifts, and make
Mhm.
that as part of or integrate that into like what you're doing on a daily basis.
Yes.
You know, it's part of your work. Now, with regards to the divination tools that you used for
Mhm.
self discovery, did they actually help you discover your higher identity and um, higher calling, you know, in this lifetime?
Oh, of course. Most definitely. They help to really put you in touch with your higher self. And even that's something that you learn along the way. You hear people talk about higher self. It's like, what is a higher self?
Right?
All I know is myself. So I didn't
Mhm.
know there was a lower self. And now you're talking about a higher self. Like, what is that?
Right? Yes.
It's
I
like,
mean, that.
who is this higher self that you're referencing? And so that needs to be distinguished, right?
Hmm.
But I believe that the easiest way to look at your higher self is to just think of it as your authentic self. Like, who
Yes.
is the self? As I was saying, now I'm able to be in the flow. I'm able to express myself freely. It's like,
Hmm.
that is the higher self. It is that self that is aiding you, helping you to navigate through life effortlessly.
Yes.
When you're having to, I think, struggle,
Hmm.
when you're constantly in this inner struggle. I'm not even talking about struggling financially or anything like that, but when
Right.
you're having this inner struggle, these inner conflicts, and what you're doing isn't in line with
Right.
who you want to be. That's that inner struggle that I'm
Yes.
talking about. And so the higher self is always going to pull you toward being authentic, being the true self, the divine self, the self that can overcome, the self that does not need to struggle. Struggle doesn't have to be a part of life. It's something we choose unconsciously. It's living unconsciously.
Yes.
So a lot of us are operating through our lower selves
Right.
rather than our higher selves. So these divination tools like numerology, astrology, tarot, and of course there are others that put you in
Hmm.
touch with your higher self, allow you to become conscious of who you are, conscious of your connection with others, conscious of just that oneness. That
Yes.
higher self is really about understanding your oneness with everyone and everything. So yeah, these
Hmm.
tools, whichever one you choose, there's no better one.
Right. And when you are connected, you know, to that higher aspect of yourself, connected to your inner guidance, you're naturally going to be drawn to the tools that are actually for you.
Yeah,
That's going
exactly.
to help you connect, help you gain the clarity that you need, you know, the
Hmm.
direction, the divine guidance
Hmm.
that's going to draw you toward, you know, your path.
Yes.
So, yes, so powerful. Speaking of the divination tools and tarot in particular,
Hmm.
have you actually seen a rise in tarot practitioners or those actually seeking readings? And if so, why do you think that is?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Mhm.
Definitely. You always think you're the only one until you find out you're not. You're among many because
Mhm.
everyone else is hiding in the closet. Especially, and there's also a difference in generations, how generations view these
Mhm.
things. So the younger generation, having a deck of tarot cards is like having a deck of regular playing cards. I played cards when I was a teenager. We played cards all the time.
Mhm.
But now teenagers are playing tarot cards all the time. So it's a regular thing.
Mhm.
Well, I think the acceptance, and then of course, mainstream has played a part in it. The different mediums we have through television, social media, they're also advertising it. It's a lot. It's just more accepted in various communities to use tarot. So there's definitely a rise. But what's interesting is seeing a rise the um, in the mental health field.
Yes.
Amongst therapists who are using tarot. and not just tarot, but astrology. You
Yes.
know, I just want to bring this up because this just came to mind. I used to
Please
pay.
do. This is a discussion. This is a discussion. So
I used to pay
yeah, please
disability
do share.
claims. I used to pay disability claims back in the early 2000s, right? And we would have access to medical records. And I remember seeing a therapist. This was, like I said, early 2000s. I remember seeing a therapist's notes included the astrological profile of a patient. And I remember
Really?
laughing at that because I'm like,
Mhm.
the therapist put that his patient's, astrological sign was Capricorn or something like that. And so fast forward to today,
Yes.
it's like, oh, wow, you're looking at therapists like, how come you're not including the astrological signs of your patients or your clients? Because it's so important, to get an idea of what you're dealing with, to get their blueprint, to kind of understand, oh, okay, I'm dealing with this type of personality, or and how
Yes.
it's expressed, which is where numerology and astrology are very similar, just different approaches.
Yes.
Same thing,
So
different approach.
true.
So it's like when I laughed before, and now I'm like, why aren't they using it? But they're starting to use it more because people are wanting more. Our souls are searching for more,
That's a
because
good point.
we're collectively, even on a subconscious level, we know that a shift is taking place, and the current tools that we have
Mhm.
aren't doing the job. They're not working for us in a soul way, in a spiritual way.
Bingo.
They worked for us before,
Right.
but it's like,
Mhm.
no, that's not working. So more people are not that they weren't before. Many of us may have experiences that we might not want to share, that we've called a psychic hotline, or
Mhm.
you know we
Right.
used this stuff before, type of
Mhm.
thing. But people are becoming more open to it, and as
Mhm.
they become more open and they are getting answers, at least the answers that they want, or answers that are moving them toward becoming more connected with their higher selves through these individuals who have the abilities of intuition and empathy and mediumship and things like that,
Yes.
who are these bridges to a spiritual, to that spiritual aspect. People are just becoming more open, and they're not finding
Mhm.
it through traditional therapists. Like, it's not enough.
It's not enough. Right. And we're going to dive into what the difference is between tarot therapy and traditional therapy.
Mhm.
Um, what I found interesting is in preparing for our discussion today,
Uh-huh.
I seen quite a few articles, one of which was the New York Times, where a traditional therapist basically was caught off guard in that many of their clients were mentioning astrology, mentioning tarot, mentioning that they were impacted by um, I was thinking of astrology, impacted by, it's just escaping me right now. And so so anyway, the therapist was like, "Oh my gosh, like what is astrology?
Right. I need to
What
learn
is
this.
this? Yeah, what is tarot?" And so many of the therapists, are actually researching these
Hmm.
um, alternative modalities and finding ways in which to incorporate them within their traditional practices. The other thing, too, is it also reminded me of when I was in Southern California. I had joined a community there, a spiritual community there, um, for energy healing, for my energy healing certifications. And more than 50% of the individuals there were from the healthcare industry.
Hmm.
And many of them said that the reason why they were exploring, in this case, energy healing, is because they see a need to connect in mind, body, and spirit. So they
Yes.
had basically indicated that that's what was, from their perspective, that that's what's missing,
Mm-hmm.
is the connection to spirit, the spirit of our soul, which is connected, to source.
Yes.
That's what's, missing. And that's what these divination tools, allow us to do, is actually connect, make that connection.
Mm-hmm.
It helps with self-reflection, self-inquiry, self-discovery, and all of the different benefits that you just mentioned. And
Yeah.
that's what people are seeking. People are seeking, ways to, better understand themselves and their relationship, with nature, um, improve their relationship with themselves, improve their relationship with others.
Mm-hmm.
These sort of tools certainly do that. I know I've benefited from it, and you are a true testament, to its benefits as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much for sharing
Oh,
all that
you're
you have
welcome.
thus far. What I thought we would do is just check in with our viewers to see if anyone who is tuned in, if you are either a tarot practitioner or if you have benefited from tarot readings.
Hmm.
So it looks like Christina. Okay, you're from Hawaii and you joined Nyki's Tarot Therapy for the Soul program a few months ago. She's indicated that it's a great program.
Yes, it is. Thanks, Christina.
You are an inspiration to her. She loves your Leo energy. That's so awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Christina. And once again, thank you all for tuning in. And so, what we will do now is dive into tarot. What is tarot? And what are some of the common misconceptions, as well as what is tarot therapy and what is the difference between tarot therapy and traditional therapy? So let's begin with a little history.
Yeah.
So, Nyki, can you share with us a little history on tarot?
Yeah, well, tarot's been around since the 15th century. So it's dated back historically um, to the 1400s, northern Italy, as just, playing cards. People use them just to play cards. It didn't evolve into the tarot that we know today until maybe like 100 years later. So we're looking at like the 1500s is
Mm,
when it started to, you know, be used the way it is today. So that's the historical aspect of, you know, where it's traced back to and how it evolved, but it's not really clear on like how it just became the way it's practiced today, like how it really went from
mm.
playing cards. There's no clear cut, on this day, and this is who, that we can trace it back to. But as far as the way it's practiced today,
Mhm,
a lot of folks use it to either for fortune telling
mhm,
purposes, and I think that's one of the things that actually either turn people on or turn people off. It's
I
for
see.
people who want answers, because the future is, we never know what the future has in store for us. Many of us are so dissatisfied with our present that we're looking for some hope in the future. So we go to psychics because we want to know, is the future brighter than today?
Mhm.
Right? So, what are the cards saying about my future? I personally don't use the cards for fortune telling. So I make that distinction. I'm not a fortune teller.
Right.
Um, but yeah, some people do use the cards for fortune telling. The cards, the way I use the cards, the way you may find quite a few people also using the cards, is really to tap in
Mhm.
into the energy that is being projected right now. So the cards act as mirrors. They
Yes.
reflect back the energy that you are expressing, the energy that is present in your life, the energy that is moving out of your life, the energy that is coming in your life. And whatever is being reflected, you can use this information to decide how you want to proceed moving forward. So that is where, if you want to talk about predicting the future, can come into play. But you're creating that, you're predicting it based on what actions you're going to take. So that is, to me, the best, or I don't want to say the best, or for lack of a better word, okay, the best. The tarot cards, right?
I
Is
see.
to use them to help you make decisions, and for you to get in touch with, and to really identify again, the energies that are present in your life. It helps you become conscious, because a lot of us live our lives unconsciously, unaware of why we're doing things, what is influencing us, what has been influencing us, and potentially, we don't, our next steps aren't being consciously planned out. So this can really help you consciously plan out your next steps, so you can have the outcome that you want, versus just receiving whatever outcome you get because, you've defaulted to staying in an unconscious state.
Yes. How empowering, is that? And so when you think of some of the common beliefs, held in our society, about tarot, are there any other misconceptions beyond fortune telling that you can think of or that you've experienced?
Well, I have met people that, of course, because of their religious beliefs, their religious backgrounds, you're told not to engage in any of these types of activities, whether it's a
Mhm.
Ouija board, tarot cards, astrology. And then people will say things like, I don't believe in that. I'm like, well, it's not a belief thing. Like, you don't have to believe. I don't believe in, you don't have to believe in gravity until you jump off a building, right?
Yes.
It's not something you need to believe in. It is what it is. So, I think some people are afraid
Hmm.
because of this. It's very interesting because when we talk about even religion, it's a spiritual thing,
Yes.
but yet we're afraid of spiritual things.
Right. Yes. Yes. And that's
We don't
actually,
want to be in touch with spirit. Um, and so you don't know what spirits are coming through. So you
Mhm.
shouldn't be doing this because it could be an evil spirit, or
Mhm.
a spirit in disguise. You don't know. And I'm like, wow, if you don't know, then yeah, that is a problem. Because if you don't know, you know,
Yes.
what you're attracting, then you really need to do some soul searching. Yeah, you really do need to get in touch with yourself so that you can know, because like attracts like. I'm not concerned about attracting negative spirits because I don't dwell in a negative space. So
Mhm.
that's just not of my concern. Um, and again, it's more of, for me, how I practice tarot, it's more of an enlightenment journey, enlightening you
Mhm.
to your subconscious. And again, psych my background in psychology,
Mhm.
I am more inclined to utilize those, theories, I guess you can say, on how the mind works and the subconscious and conscious. So that's generally how I use the cards to tap into that. Not so much accessing spirits, even though it is a spiritual practice.
Yes. No, that's such a great explanation. Um, I'm just wondering, in checking in with our viewers, Are you aware of any misconceptions out there that are deeply held, within our culture, as it relates to tarot that you would like to share with us? So we'll just, yeah, give them a moment to see if anyone you would like to share. And so while we're doing that, are there any specific skills that you think would be helpful for individuals to have that are interested in becoming tarot practitioners?
Any skills? Hmm.
Yeah. Or do you possess any skills that you feel have benefited you, in being a practitioner and teacher of tarot?
I really can't pinpoint any particular skills, like prerequisites that are needed for practicing. I I say as long as you're just open, that's not
Mhm,
so much a skill, but just being open
mhm,
is what you need is to have an open mind, and an open heart,
mhm,
and just be willing to, tap into your own, um, intuitive side. And as soon as you start overthinking, that can cause blockage. So it's like, okay, you kind of have to
mhm.
also get out of your head as well when you're practicing tarot. So you really it does require, um, a great deal of openness.
I
Not
see.
so much like
And
a skill. I think the skill is actually what you develop. Like as you're practicing, you will develop, some skill, become more adept at
mhm,
understanding the cards, because there's 78 cards, in a deck. That's a lot of different
mhm,
meanings. So,
mhm,
you'll develop that skill of learning how to read the cards and understanding what they're communicating, and then being very open to the energy of the person that you're reading for. So it takes several different things kind of happening at the same time, but you have to be open and very comfortable with what's happening with the process as well.
I see. So one of the skills then would be intuition.
Hmm.
And it sounds like there's skills that you just naturally develop over time. I've had an opportunity to have some readings, of course, and there are a lot of tarot practitioners on YouTube, wonderful ones that are so very skilled, and you can tell that they're so very intuitive and they have the ability to read the cards and to tell the story. I'm
Yes.
always in awe of how well they actually tell the story. And
Yes.
so then that speaks to symbolism.
Yeah.
You know, um, as a society, we're not used to living our lives through symbolism. And when you reflect on some of the ancient societies, Egypt in particular,
Mhm.
they that's how they lived. They lived their lives through symbolism. In fact, their very language, right, was symbols. And this was how they connected, um, on both, internally and externally. It's just how they experienced, the world was through symbolism. And so when I think of tarot, sacred geometry, numerology as well, there's a lot of symbolism that's associated with, those modalities, and interpretation, of the symbolism is something that is also personal,
Yeah.
as well. And so I'm not sure if you want to speak a little bit more to tarot and the symbolism and how that connects to the subconscious and conscious mind.
Hmm. Well, in tarot, as I was stating, there's 78 cards in a deck. They're divided by, what's called the major arcana and the minor arcana. So your major arcana, made up of 22 cards, is basically depicts like the major themes that we experience as human
Mm,
beings. across cultures. So it doesn't matter, where you're from, what continent you've lived on. We all share in certain experiences just as human beings. The mother, the father, we have these life and death, and these struggles again that we experience as human beings. So that's kind of like the major themes that the major arcana depicts. And then you have the minor arcana, which are 56 cards that relate to our everyday, our everyday type of things that we deal with throughout life. And so with tarot, you have these like two different, you have your major themes, you have your minor themes. And so as a tarot practitioner, when you're able to pull it all together, and you were mentioning that storytelling aspect.
Mhm.
I teach tarot from the storyteller perspective. I really teach tarot in a way that practitioners can tell it in a story versus just meanings, individual meanings, because it's like, okay, it's kind of like words,
Mhm.
right? Words have individual meanings. So I can throw a word out and I can tell you what it means, but it's going to take on a different, you're going to have a different understanding when I add more words,
Yes.
right? Because
Mhm.
now it's like, oh, I can say bear. Okay, what is a bear? A bear is
Mhm.
this, animal, and it can be big. But now I say bear and woods and black bear. Now I'm adding all these other things to it. It's like your view of it starts to expand. And so with tarot, once you get past just learning the meanings and you start to form the connections, and you can tell the story, and you can help someone, understand the subconscious influence that is, you know,
Mhm.
uh, contributing toward their experience, then it becomes a completely different, you know, just
Yes.
a, just a very different experience.
Yeah, that makes oh, it just makes so much sense. And when it comes to tarot therapy,
Mhm.
what is the difference between tarot therapy and traditional therapy? Well, first, what is tarot therapy? And then share with us what the difference is
Yeah, what
between
is tarot
yeah,
therapy?
what is tarot therapy?
The short version. I teach the short version. It's just tarot with a therapeutic touch. That's what tarot therapy is.
Okay.
But the long version, my definition of tarot therapy is that tarot therapy is an unconventional therapeutic modality that integrates the spiritual practice of tarot with traditional therapeutic methods that address issues of trauma, negative thinking,
Mhm.
and unhealthy patterns of behavior. So, tarot therapy is just an integration of tarot cards with some traditional therapeutic practices. Do you need to be a trained, licensed therapist? Not at all. If anything, you need to be a skilled, adept tarot reader, because that's
Mhm.
what the emphasis in. So, the difference between a tarot reading and tarot therapy: tarot readings typically involve one encounter, right? You go to your tarot reader, you have a question, and you get it answered.
Mhm.
Tarot therapy takes place over a few sessions, so they can be they're generally 90-minute and 45-minute sessions, one 90-minute session and then 3 45-minute sessions. So I generally offer like 4 sessions. So your typical tarot therapy um, package will include 4 sessions, whereas a tarot reading is just like I said, a one-time deal, one-time encounter. It could be a 5-minute reading, 15-minute reading, 30-minute reading, however long a tarot reader is advertising, right? And you're, as the querent, the one asking the question, you're the one asking the question because you're inquiring, you want to know something. Tarot therapists generally will ask more questions of the person who's needing the therapy, or who's, the client. They're the ones asking the questions, reflective questions. Um, so that's pretty much the difference. The main differences is just the the time frame, the amount of time spent with your tarot therapist. It's more engaging than just having a tarot reading.
I see. And so you certainly are a testament, a very positive testament to the benefits of tarot and tarot therapy. Um, could you share with us some of the benefits that your clients have received and some of their testimonies?
Yeah. The benefits have been, which is what I emphasize, is really tapping into your subconscious influences, what you're not aware of, what is contributing, that programming that is contributing toward your current behavior, because it's through our mental processes and our behaviors that are really predicting, right, our future outcomes. And when you're not aware of what is influencing those things, if you're not aware of the programming, you're bound to repeat the same, cycles over and over. And so with tarot therapy, it doesn't just focus on the mind like psychology, right? Psychology is more focused on mental processes and your observable behavior. Whereas with tarot, because it's a spiritual practice, it can go beyond, just the mental aspect. So now we can dive a little bit deeper into not only spiritual influences, but outside influences from other energies. So it's more of an energetic outlook versus, again, just looking at or just talking about what you're thinking and what you're doing. Even though tarot therapy is similar in, in helping, in the way that it helps, the approach is just very different. Some of us are experiencing things that might be causing us or providing, like I said, negative outcomes that are related to maybe a past life experience versus just something that was experienced in childhood. Some of our issues aren't just strictly childhood issues. It can go beyond that. And so with tarot therapists, most of those who even practice tarot are already highly intuitive people. So they're not just educated in psychology. They're not formally educated in a particular field. These folks, myself included, we are already spiritually in tuned and connected. So we're coming with these abilities of intuition, these empathic abilities. Some of us are shamans, mediums. So it's another layer. We're already connected. So we don't always even need the cards. They're more helpful for the client than really, for us. We're getting messages, we're hearing things, and we're able to pass that on and to help our clients. So that's the benefit of tarot, of having a tarot therapist. Tarot therapy is not intended to replace or substitute traditional therapy for the purpose of diagnosing or treating a mental illness. Because you have some folks that truly have some cognitive disorders, that have some chemical imbalances. Those need to be treated by licensed clinicians, people who are experienced in those things. For example, if you have a physical condition, you can go to a Reiki therapist or energy healer to say, like, can do their little energy thing. I'm not a person, but I'm just saying energy thing, right? But then there's going to be instances where it's like, you need to take your butt to a doctor. Like, you really need to
for sure.
You need surgery.
Yes.
You can go to your energy person all day long, but at some point you may just need to go ahead and have surgery. So it's the same thing with tarot therapy. It's not intended for people with some severe cognitive disorders and imbalances and things like that. You may need to go ahead and see a psychiatrist or a licensed, like I said, a licensed clinician. This tarot therapy, again, it's just going a little bit deeper spiritually as to what is troubling you,
I see.
and to help people get connected spiritually to resolve their issues that can be resolved through those methods versus, you know, needing a drug or something like that, or just needing something more intensive.
I see. And so, what are some of the common challenges that your clients actually come to you with to help be resolved through tarot therapy?
Repeated patterns of, definitely like those repeated negative patterns of
Hmm.
behavior.
Okay.
You know, when you're doing something over and over again, and it's like, okay, my life is, I'm stuck. I'm in
Hmm.
this pattern, I'm stuck, I don't know how to get out, type of thing. So things like that tend
Okay.
to be what clients are seeking help with. And it can range, you know, their experiences can range, right? But the commonality is, I'm repeating stuff over and over. So they're not aware of why I'm repeating this over and over, these cycles. They're not aware of their own energy,
Hmm.
um, their own blueprints. We provide a tarot profile as tarot therapists. We provide a tarot profile so we can see the cards associated with your date of birth, with your you know, your astrology,
Right.
your numerology. There's cards, tarot cards associated with those things. So when you're able to see that, then you have that aha moment, like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
now I understand why I'm doing things a certain way. So now I need help on figuring out how to do it in a way that's going to bring me the best outcome versus this repeated cycle. It's you know, a part of the deprogramming that we help with as well.
Yeah, it's so very powerful. Um, I should say, empowering way to bring some of these issues, to the consciousness, right? Because a lot of this is just held at the subconscious level. And it's one of the ways, or one of the reasons why these patterns just continue to repeat. And through tarot, it allows you to become more, as you mentioned before, more consciously aware of, um, yeah, more aware of these patterns. And through that conscious awareness, it allows you to be more intentional
Yes.
in terms of the decisions that you make, provides greater clarity
Mm-hmm.
and direction as
And
well.
being able to see the cards, because the cards have pictures and we're visual,
Mhm.
right? To be able to see what's being depicted on the cards, the client is able to see themselves. You know, they can see themselves going, you know, in those pictures. So you may not be conscious of certain things, but when you're able to see it in front of you, it's now imprinted in you know, in your mind. Now you can see it. Now you have something visually to connect to. So that's another reason why
Powerful.
tarot is so powerful, is because you're able
Mhm.
to connect visually to something. You know,
Yeah, and
just
as
like
you mentioned before, you said that they act as a mirror,
yes, it's a mirror.
into that subconscious realm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I've done readings for people and you show them the card, and you as the reader may not even understand like what this means to a person. We're just here to interpret the meanings, to put the picture together, right? But you don't know specifically exactly what's going on in a person's life. You get an idea because of what the cards are saying, and so you're like pointing stuff out. And I've had instances where clients will look at the cards before you even get into the story, into the meaning. They'll look
Mhm.
at it and they already know what it means. They don't even read tarot, but they know what that card means to them. They're like, I already knew this is what I'm going through. Like, this is
Mhm.
me right here. I'm up all night and I'm worried. And so, you know, it's very powerful. We can all relate
Yeah.
because it's
Wow.
about our human, collectively about our human experiences. So we can all relate. That's why I tell tarot practitioners it's very important the decks that you choose
Mhm.
for your clients. choose, if you're doing tarot therapy, you want to choose decks that are as visual as possible versus decks that just have symbols, because there are some decks that just, in the minor arcana, they're just symbols. A person's not going to connect who's not a tarot reader, who doesn't know tarot, who doesn't know the meanings. They won't
Mhm.
connect to just symbols. They'll connect to the pictures. You got to get some pictures. They need the visual, so that will, help them. So when you're doing tarot therapy, you want to invest in a deck that is going to help your clients. You can have your own deck for yourself when you do your own readings, or if you're,
No,
just
yeah, I never thought of it that way, in terms of there being such importance, on the deck that you choose, because um, the symbols, it needs to be just more than symbols. It needs to um, really be able to help tell the story. And you do that best, through pictures. And I
yes,
can see why the Rider Waite deck, is one of your favorite decks, to work with, because there is not just symbols, but there's pictures, that
yeah,
contain those symbols, and every single symbol, within the picture, has individual meaning, but then also there's an interconnected and interdependent nature,
mm-hmm,
between all of those symbols together collectively,
yes.
creating a picture, which helps to create that, that story. And so, with there being a rise, in tarot therapist and those seeking tarot and tarot therapy, what do you foresee tarot having, or what impact do you see tarot having on traditional therapy and traditional, methods of treatment?
What impact do I see tarot therapy having on traditional therapy? I see it impacting traditional therapy. Well, I want it to.
Yeah, okay, so maybe a better way of putting this is,
I want it to.
what is your vision? What is your
My
vision
vision
for
is
the
my
future?
my vision is definitely to train more tarot readers to become tarot therapists, and to make it something that is definitely mainstream. Right now I
Mhm,
call it an unconventional therapeutic modality, but at some point I would love for it to be more mainstream, and to be able to then teach licensed therapists tarot,
mhm,
so they can incorporate it into their practice, because it's such a beneficial
mhm,
tool. And that's how I look at it. It's just an added tool. And it's not only helpful for the client,
mhm.
it's beneficial for the therapist, because it requires you as a therapist to become more connected to your higher self, to become more intuitive, to become more connected to your client. I feel that there's a disconnect with a lot of therapists and their clients.
Yes.
For some folks, for some therapists, it is just a job.
Mhm.
It's something that they've learned in a textbook, and they put those skills to use when they meet with their clients. Their clients aren't satisfied because they're talking over and over again about their issues, which is a form
Mhm.
of, re-traumatizing oneself, when you're constantly
Yes.
talking about the same hurtful, painful
Right.
experiences with no resolve, with no, like, okay, how can I get out of this? And so with some therapies, it's just really not helping. You see them over and over and over again. People have been in therapy 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years. Like, why are you in therapy for 10 years for something that happened when you were 5, 6 years old? It's at some point, it's like,
Right.
you should be helped to move forward, not to just stay where you are and let's just talk about it. It's like, okay,
Mhm.
let's do something about it. What can we do? How can we move you forward so you can graduate to the next level of your life? And there are going to be more challenges. Life is always presenting challenges, but how you deal with them should be different, as
Yes.
you transcend. there should be how you handle challenges are going to be different. And so that's how I see tarot therapy for the future, is just being able to help people in a different way than what's been happening lately.
Yes, and so it certainly seems as though we're moving in that direction,
Mm-hmm.
where there's just going to be an integration, between both the traditional methods, as you mentioned, focus more on childhood trauma, focus more on the past, focus more on like the mental, side of things. And so it's going to be wonderful for us to, at some point, integrate spirituality, right?
Mm-hmm.
We often say we want to connect in mind, body, and spirit, but spirit has been left out, of,
Yeah.
yeah, out of the equation. And we have suffered, as a result, of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, and so it's been really um, there's just I just feel really hopeful, for the future, because we can see the change.
Yeah.
Here at work, just this past week, so many of the women that I don't know if they're part of the spiritual or conscious community, but we're having discussions about astrology. I mentioned something about you know um, what's in the water, and a couple of my colleagues, just because there was just a lot going on, and a couple of my
Yeah.
colleagues said, "Well, there was a full moon a couple of days ago." You know what I
Right.
mean? And then, my other colleague said, "Are we in retrograde?" You know? And I'm like looking at these women and like, oh my goodness, so it just
You're
is
speaking my language.
speaking my language, and so you can just tell, that there is this change. There's more discussions of spirituality and our relationship to nature, to the cosmic movements, to um, as well as the use of divination tools such as tarot. And so we're certainly headed in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
I hold your vision, sister.
Thank you.
Yes, yes, such a beautiful vision. And so, if there's one piece of advice that you can impart on the viewers today, what would that advice be?
My advice. I don't give out advice.
Okay, okay.
I really don't give out advice.
Soul
Hmm.
wisdom, any additional soul wisdom? So, yes, because you are a wise one. So, any additional soul wisdom that you would like to impart, on the viewers today, what would that be?
I would say continue, if you haven't started already, to get soul connected, to get connected to your higher self through whatever means you feel drawn to, which is what we said earlier. So if that is through astrology, by all means, pursue it. If it's through numerology or tarot, pursue, getting more connected to your higher self.
Wonderful. Such great, great soul wisdom. Thank you so much for that. And if anyone would like to connect with you, can you just take a moment to share a little bit about the services you provide? And while you're doing that, I am going to provide information within the comment section, as to how they can connect with you.
Well, you can definitely, if you're interested in any of my workshops and learning tarot, practicing tarot, then you can definitely connect with me on my Facebook group page, Soul Connected. You can also, if you're interested in any of my services, which is tarot therapy, numerology coaching, tarot readings, I do it all. Then you can definitely go to my website, tarottherapyforthesoul.com. I also have a Facebook business page, Tarot Therapy for the Soul. If you just want to connect with me, then I'm also on Facebook, Nyki Carreathers. I don't do. I mean, I'm on Instagram, but I just the one thing
Mhm.
about Instagram is I believe it or not, I do not post any tarot stuff on my Instagram. I don't know. I just don't do
Mhm.
Instagram like that. But definitely those three, Soul Connected, my website, tarottherapyforthesoul.com, and the business page, Tarot Therapy for the Soul, are the best ways to reach me.
Connect with you. Well, thank
Oh,
you.
there's one more thing I did want to say,
Yes,
because
please do.
I do have the tarot therapy certification program that I've been developing. And right now, I am looking for someone who would like to be a volunteer client. So, those that are practicing, we use volunteer clients to help them with their certification. So, if anyone is interested in being a volunteer client, then definitely connect with me. You can also message me too on Facebook. You can also send me a message. But if you're interested in being a volunteer client, then please email me at Nyki at tarottherapyforthesoul.com and let me know. You would receive 4 free tarot therapy sessions. It's great
Oh,
for someone to try it out as well,
yeah.
because with tarot therapy, I have a very well defined way of doing tarot therapy. So we're not just shooting out tarot cards, and have, have a very specific way of doing it. So this is a modality that I have created. So yes, definitely let me know if you're interested. I am also going to have a tarot circle on April 10th in the evening, where I'm going to have a group of tarot readers who are going to be available for free tarot readings. So I will be advertising that as well on my Soul Connected
Oh,
group page and Eventbrite. It'll be on Eventbrite. So I'll probably be posting it sometime this week. So I wanted everyone to know that too.
wow, how exciting. I'm so excited for you. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much. It is such a blessing to have your presence here today and for you to um, share your journey with us, your wisdom. I am so grateful. I know that I've benefited greatly from it. I'm sure others have as well. You truly are an embodied sacred feminine leader. And so, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was
Yeah.
beautiful.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. And for all of you who have tuned in, thank you so much for being here as well. We appreciate your participation, and um, we hope that this was a benefit for you. And we will have our next Sacred Feminine Leadership Sunday discussion on Sunday, April 10th at 1 p.m. Pacific time. And the topic that we will be exploring is the awakening power of music as sound. And our special guest will be Tamaka Makheru. And so you won't want to miss it. And until then, I'm wishing you continued peace and many blessings. Thank you, Soul Family, for joining us today.